Sorry that I cannot be there in person today, but I really thank Guy and Marianne for the opportunity to participate nonetheless. I hope you've had a really productive day so far here at the interface between science and art. I believe I'm the last scientist to be speaking to you today, and I'll be talking about humpback whales, which potentially win one of the Charisma Awards when we're talking about the ecology of Antarctica and the Southern Ocean. Images like this one are very evocative, and obviously migrating whales as they move along the coastlines of Australia support very large ecotourism, and migrating whales occupy a pretty special place in the hearts and minds of many Australians today. The scale of their migrations is impressive. It's one of the longest known mammal migrations in the world, from their breeding grounds in the low latitudes up near the tropics down into the Southern Ocean towards Antarctica, where they exploit their feeding grounds in the summer. And Paddy Virtue probably talked to you earlier all about Antarctic krill, and there's plenty of other yummy crustaceans they like to chow down on in those productive Southern Ocean waters. Perhaps Kerry Swadling talked about some of those food webs. So humpback whales are managed still under the International Whaling Commission, established in 1946, even though they've been protected since the 60s. There was continuing illegal hunting. It's come to light right through the 70s, and populations today can be thought of as recovering populations, but there's quite a lot of differentiation between the stocks, with some of them, like those in Australian waters, showing really rapid rates of increase, and near neighbours in Oceania showing no population increase at all. So my work is on movement ecology, and we're getting increasingly detailed information about where the animals go and when and why from satellite relayed telemetry. The panel on the left shows very recent tracks from the Western Australian population, and the colouring in the background actually shows the historical whale harvest. So we can see that these areas in the Indian sector of the Southern Ocean that the whales are targeting, they've been important to these population since at least historical times. So many generations of whales moving into these areas, into these key feeding areas. So this is just a photo showing the deployment of one of the trackers on the whales. It's quite an evocative image. It reminds me a little bit of the historical harpooning pictures, but obviously this is completely non-lethal scientific research that's being undertaken. I'll show you a movie now of the same migratory pathways. These are daily images from satellites showing the ocean currents and the sea ice as these whales are moving rapidly down into this area of the Southern Ocean. And Brian Miller kindly provided some whale song. So we're in December here, and the ice has retreated quite close to Antarctica, and we see that the animals start moving down through January. The last transmission from these tags was in March of 2017. So my work is primarily in analysing this tracking data. I work a lot with mathematical models, which I won't talk about very much today. But we use the telemetry data to estimate parameters and try and formulate mathematical models to represent their movements. So an example is shown here, split between the males and females with calves. And the colours denote different movement states, where the blue is showing the very rapid and directed outbound migratory pathway. And then as they slow down and stop and turn and start to forage, the yellow and the red is showing that change in movement states. And females with calves typically move a lot more slowly than unencumbered adults. So my work is primarily linking these movements in with environmental and habitat information. So there's a couple of images here showing, for example, the ice concentration, the ocean temperature, and a proxy for food availability that we get from Earth system models with a carbon cycle built in. There's a trade-off between complexity that's really true in these migratory pathways and what's sufficient in our representation of those movements. And the aim ultimately is so that we can integrate this information and develop simulations for what the future looks like for these 3 different populations of humpback whales with their contrasting population recoveries. So thank you very much again for the opportunity to speak, and I'll defer any questions to Mary Ann Lee, who I believe just presented some of her movement ecology research and is well placed to answer any questions.